The deception of scale. She walked through the halls of the Pentagon in 2018, briefing senior military officials on Middle Eastern threats. During a coffee break, a decorated general posed what he thought was a straightforward question. How exactly does a country smaller than New Jersey manage to dominate an entire region? The question revealed something profound about how even America's most sophisticated strategists fundamentally misunderstand the nature of power in the 21st century. The general was applying 20th century metrics to a 21st century reality. He was thinking in terms of land mass, population size, and conventional military assets. He was measuring Israel by the logic of the industrial age when power was indeed correlated with physical scale. But this is precisely how the David illusion operates. Israel appears small because we measure it by the wrong dimensions. We see 9 million people and compare them to Egypt's 100 million or Iran's 85 million. We see 20,000 square kilometers and contrast it with Turkey's 780,000. We count tanks and aircraft and conclude that Israel must be the underdog in any regional conflict. This is the most dangerous analytical error in modern geopolitics. Because Israel is not small, Israel is concentrated. And concentration, not scale, is the fundamental source of power in the information age. The network reality. To understand how Israel actually projects power, you must stop thinking about countries as territories and start thinking about them as networks. Israel's true geography is not the land between the Mediterranean and the Jordan River. It is a global nervous system of relationships, capabilities, and influence that spans continents. Consider the simplest example: Israel's defense industry. On paper, it appears to be a minor player. The entire Israeli economy is roughly the size of Ireland's. Yet, Israel is the world's largest arms exporter per capita and the 8th largest in absolute terms. It sells more weapons than countries 10 times its size. How is this possible? Because Israel does not compete in the mass production game. It competes in the innovation game. While other countries produce thousands of basic systems, Israel produces dozens of revolutionary ones. A single Israeli-designed Iron Dome battery protects more people than entire armored divisions. One Israeli cyber capability can neutralize threats that would require armies to address conventionally. This is the David illusion at work. David appears weak because he carries no armor. But David's strength lies not in his protection, but in his precision. And precision, properly deployed, always defeats mass. The intelligence revolution. The most misunderstood aspect of Israeli power is its intelligence architecture. Western analysts focus on Mossad's operational successes and failures, treating intelligence as a collection of dramatic spy stories. They miss the systemic revolution that Israeli intelligence represents. Additional intelligence services gather information. Israeli intelligence shapes reality. The difference is profound and largely invisible to outside observers. When Iranian nuclear scientists begin experiencing unusual technical difficulties with their centrifuges, this is not simply sabotage, it is reality modification. When Hamas commanders find their communications compromised and their tunnels mapped in real time, this is not just surveillance, it is environmental control. Israeli intelligence operates on the principle that Information properly applied can achieve effects that would otherwise require massive kinetic force. Why invade a country when you can modify its decision-making process? Why destroy an enemy's army when you can convince that army to make fatal mistakes? This approach requires a completely different kind of intelligence architecture than anything developed during the Cold War. It requires real-time integration of cyber capabilities, human intelligence, signals, intelligence, and psychological operations. It requires treating the enemy's mind as terrain to be mapped and controlled. The result is that Israel can defeat adversaries without those adversaries fully understanding how they were defeated. Iran's nuclear program has been delayed by years through methods that Iran's leaders cannot publicly acknowledge without revealing their own incompetence. Hezbollah's military capabilities have been systematically degraded through operations that Hezbollah cannot respond to without exposing assets they prefer to keep hidden. This is power without visibility. It is the ability to achieve strategic effects while maintaining plausible deniability, and it is only possible for a state that has completely reimagined what intelligence means in the modern world. The technology multiplier. The David illusion is most apparent in Israel's technology sector. Critics dismiss Israel as a startup nation that produces clever apps and cyber toys. They miss the fundamental transformation of warfare that Israeli technology has enabled. Consider the F-35 fighter jet. This $80 million aircraft, the most expensive weapons system in American history, depends on Israeli technology for its most crucial capabilities. Israeli companies design its electro-optical systems, its helmet-mounted displays, and critical elements of its electronic warfare suite. An American pilot flying an F-35 is partially dependent on Israeli engineering for survival. This dependency is not accidental. It is the result of a deliberate strategy to become indispensable to larger powers by controlling critical nodes in their capability chains. Israel cannot match America's scale in aircraft production, but it can ensure that American aircraft cannot function optimally without Israeli components. The same pattern appears across multiple domains. Israeli companies control critical infrastructure for American telecommunications networks, European energy systems, and Asian financial platforms. These are not large companies by global standards, but they occupy strategic positions that give them influence far beyond their apparent size. When a single Israeli cyber firm can protect the digital infrastructure of major banks worldwide, traditional measures of national power become meaningless. Size matters less than position. Scale matters less than capability. Geographic territory matters less than network topology. The alliance architecture. The most sophisticated aspect of Israeli power projection is its alliance system. This system does not operate according to traditional patterns of international relations. Israel does not form alliances based on shared ideology or overlapping interests. It forms alliances based on mutual dependency. The Abraham Accords represent the culmination of this approach. For decades, Arab states and Israel maintained public hostility while developing private cooperation. The recent normalization agreements simply acknowledged what had already become operationally true. Israel had become more valuable as a partner than as an enemy. This transformation occurred not because Arab leaders suddenly embraced Zionism, but because they recognized that Israel possessed capabilities they needed and could not develop independently. Israeli cyber defense, agricultural technology, water management systems, and surveillance capabilities became more important than traditional expressions of Arab solidarity. The genius of this approach is that it transforms ideological conflicts into practical partnerships. Countries that cannot publicly support Israel's political positions can privately benefit from Israeli technological capabilities. The relationship becomes too valuable to sacrifice for symbolic victories. This creates a peculiar form of soft power. Israel does not need to be loved, it needs to be needed. And in an era of rapid technological change and complex security threats, Israel has successfully positioned itself as indispensable to countries that would prefer to consider it dispensable. The asymmetric advantage. The David illusion obscures Israel's most important strategic innovation, the complete rejection of symmetric warfare. While other countries attempt to match their enemies, tank for tank, missile for missile, Israel has built its entire security architecture around asymmetric superiority. Every Israeli military system is designed to defeat larger numbers of enemy systems. Iron Dome intercepts rockets that cost fund with interceptors that cost fee zusammenbauen. But the economic calculation is misleading. The real value lies not in the interceptor, but in the continuation of normal life. A single rocket attack that disrupts economic activity costs more than 1 million interceptors. This logic extends beyond missile defense. Israeli cyber capabilities can neutralize enemy command systems that cost billions to develop. Israeli special operations forces can eliminate threats that would otherwise require massive conventional operations. Israeli intelligence can prevent conflicts that would otherwise devastate entire regions. The strategic insight is profound. In a world of accelerating technological change, the side that can adapt faster has an insurmountable advantage over the side that relies on traditional metrics of strength. Israel cannot outproduce Iran in terms of missiles, but it can out-innovate Iran in terms of missile defense. It cannot match Syria's territory, but it can dominate Syrian airspace. It cannot equal Egypt's population, but it can exceed Egyptian technological capabilities. This creates a new form of deterrence. Traditional deterrence was based on the ability to inflict unacceptable damage. Asymmetric deterrence is based on the ability to render enemy capabilities irrelevant. The threat is not that Israel will destroy you, but that Israel will make your weapons useless, your communications transparent, and your strategies predictable. The innovation ecosystem. Behind Israel's apparent military and technological advantages lies a less visible but more important reality, a national innovation ecosystem that treats crisis as opportunity. This ecosystem does not simply produce new technologies. It produces new categories of technological possibility. The ecosystem operates according to principles that contradict conventional business wisdom. Instead of avoiding risk, it systematically courts risk. Instead of pursuing incremental improvements, it pursues revolutionary breakthroughs. Instead of focusing on market size, it focuses on problem complexity. The result is that Israeli companies routinely solve problems that larger companies cannot or will not attempt. When American tech giants encounter security challenges beyond their capabilities, they frequently acquire Israeli firms that have already solved those challenges. When European industries face regulatory obstacles, they license Israeli technologies that bypass those obstacles. This creates a unique form of economic influence. Israel captures value not through market dominance, but through technological indispensability. It does not need to control industries. It needs to control the critical capabilities that make those industries possible. The David illusion prevents observers from recognizing this dynamic. They see small companies and conclude limited influence. They miss the fact that small companies solving big problems often have more strategic value than large companies solving small problems. The mirror of power. The ultimate irony of the David illusion is that it reveals more about the observers than about Israel itself. When American generals struggle to understand how Israel exercises regional influence, they reveal the limitations of American strategic thinking. When European diplomats dismiss Israeli capabilities, they expose European assumptions about the relationship between size and significance. Israel's power is not hidden. It is simply organized according to principles that traditional geopolitical analysis cannot easily accommodate. It is power based on capability rather than capacity, on precision rather than scale, on networks rather than territory. Understanding Israel's actual power projection requires abandoning industrial age metrics and embracing information age realities. It requires recognizing that in a world of rapid change, the ability to adapt quickly matters more than the ability to produce massively. It requires accepting that influence now flows through technological superiority and strategic positioning rather than geographical control and demographic advantage. The David illusion will persist as long as analysts continue to measure 21st century powers by 20th century standards. But the illusion is becoming more dangerous as other powers begin to understand and replicate Israeli methods. The real question is not how Israel became so powerful despite being so small, but how quickly. Other small powers will learn to exploit the same paradox. The age of geographic determinism is ending. The age of network dominance has begun. And Israel, having mastered this transition earlier and more completely than its competitors, offers a preview of what strategic advantage will look like in a world where size matters less than speed, scale matters less than sophistication, and territory matters less than technology. The giant is learning to fear David, and David is no longer pretending to be weak.